Awesome. So last week we talked about local SEO information. I thought I'd put together a quick presentation just on that. I've taken just a bunch of screenshots that I think illustrate good points about local SEO and why it's important. It's not difficult, but it's just a lot of companies get it wrong. So I think it's just a good thing to kind of ease into the organic side of things. Because yeah, it's kind of the basis and foundation of how local leads are going to find you. Um, and once again, it's not that hard to make sure it's all set up. So what I'll do, I'll share that. We'll go through these, just a few screenshots, and we'll kind of take it from there. And hopefully, it sparks some kind of questions about the follow-up questions about the strategy behind this. Okay, awesome. So the first thing I really want to talk about is Google Business Profile. This is kind of where local SEO kind of starts, in my mind at least. It's one of them ones that you can always optimize more, but the basics has to be there, right? So I've kind of picked on some companies, especially from Ontario, because I know these companies quite well, being in Canada myself. So I really want to talk about, where the information is shown, and then I haven't really touched on how to upload this. It's just a bit of a high level view of typical strategies when it comes to local SEO. All right. So do you guys understand what I mean, local SEO? Like, does that make sense, that concept?
Maybe if you could explain it
Mhm.
a little bit further, that would be helpful for me.
Yeah, all good, no worries. So say if I typed in like solar company near me or solar company Edmonton, for example, um, Google is going to have information about where that person is located. And that's going to be a local search. It's going to be localized because they're looking for a company near them or in a specific city or province, state. So it's really a search determined by location. And kind of local SEO is how we optimize for specific locations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, cool. So the strategy behind this is like the goal of this strategy is to really get leads where you're serving, where your company installs panels, and try to limit the people that are contacting you outside of your service area. So the more information you give to Google, the more information Google has to work with about where you serve, where you operate and all that kind of stuff. And we'll show you for certain terms as we kind of get into it. Um, awesome. So I've picked on two companies here. They're both out of Ontario. Got Guelph Solar and Terawatt Solar. So Guelph Solar is a really pretty big company. They've been around for a while. And you can see here the first thing is a 4.9 star average out of 138 Google reviews, compared to Terawatt Solar, 4.7 out of 27 reviews. So when people are searching for solar quotes near them, they're going to do their due diligence. The vast majority of people that I speak to when I qualify leads are always going to do their own research on their companies, right? You send over their quotes, it's got your brand name, your brand information. They're going to want to make sure they're going with the right company. And this is it's a very easy way for them to do this, right? They can look at all your reviews, how many reviews you got, how long you've been in business, all that kind of stuff, right? So this is just a nice dashboard to have optimized to really put your best foot forward organically when people are actually directly searching for you. Um, there is a process to get Google reviews. That would probably be another lesson. There's a whole kind of strategy and process I implement behind that I would recommend. If you guys are interested in that, I can put together on the framework I like to see, because there's a couple of little pitfalls that I see companies make. But yeah, once again, probably not covered in this lesson too much. suffice to say they are important because they're kind of the first visual that a customer will get on comparing companies, right? And then obviously they can click this blue link and go in and read individual specific reviews. If you're getting 1-star reviews, it's only going to hurt your credibility. And it's very hard to come back from too. Awesome. Any questions about like the reviews, like basic dashboard? Do you do you guys know where this screenshot lives? Like, is it when you search for a company, you know how to find this screenshot of your company?
No, I don't. I do have a question about that though.
Yeah, go for it.
For example, like company I'm working with is fairly large, and I've been through their Google reviews, and you know, since we do have a plumbing division or data division and service division, some of the reviews aren't strictly to solar, let's say, but I wouldn't say like the star value kind of isn't really there for the whole company or parts of the company. How would you suggest going about that? Because when people look at that, they might see like a 1-star review, but that was a bad experience with the plumbing division, for example.
Yeah. So what Google Business Profile, Google My Business, is trying to do is it's focusing on a specific location. So if you've got multiple divisions in that one location, it does typically get lumped together unless the plumbing division has a different address, different physical address than the solar division or electrical division. They are going to be lumped together. I'll explain what to do with negative reviews. I think that's important because you are going to get them. Like something falls through the cracks. There's a client that's just being unreasonable. It happens. And there's ways that you can turn negative reviews into positives. But yeah, they're going to be lumped together. So yeah, it's just part of the strategy. 1-star reviews are going to happen. It's just part of being in business. And there's a way we can deal with them to kind of show potential future customers that you care. So got this. This is just when people search for the brand name of a company, this is typically what's going to come up. This map pack, showing where the company is based out of, showing some photos, and it's this kind of column on the right-hand side that everything is pulled from Google Business Profile, Google My Business. Okay. So you can go in there and you can do a whole bunch of other settings and stuff, but this is kind of like the high level stuff that people are really looking for. And obviously you can click those reviews, go to the website directions, you can call directly from there. So people don't even have to visit your site to make a call, which is, once again, it's great. If you're not tracking these calls though, it can be really hard to know where these calls are coming from. That's conversion tracking, call tracking, once again, a different lesson altogether. But there's ways you can track these calls and these clicks. But yeah, does that make sense of the screenshots now? Does that kind of put things into perspective a bit more, Mikkel?
Yeah.
Perfect. Do you have any questions, Brianna?
So the screenshot is the what's displayed on the right part of the screen. Is that correct? That's okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll keep this over here in case we need it again. But it is good to put things in perspective for sure. So as you can see, the website directions. Sometimes the settings and the look and the feel of how things displayed, like these buttons are rounded, these buttons are square, doesn't really matter. But it will look a little bit different depending on what Google decides to show. But the basic information is going to be there, right? Awesome. So what I really wanted to do, I'm going to pick on another company here that does this really well, is Google Business Profile is going to focus on specific individual, like physical locations, rather than the typical service range of services, right? So this is Zeno Renewables out of Edmonton. If you've familiar with anything in the Canadian solar industry, you've probably heard of Zeno quite a bit. And they're in multiple cities. So when you're in multiple cities, you want to have a local presence for each of those cities, right? So you can see here, we've got Zeno Renewables Edmonton. I'm specifically searching for that brand name, but I'm searching for it in Edmonton. So just to kind of give Google a bit more context about what I'm after. And the name of this profile is Zeno Renewables Edmonton. If we go to the next screenshot, we'll be able to see Zeno Renewables Lethbridge. So another city in southern Alberta, but they've got a completely different profile set up for Lethbridge. So what I was just mentioning before, Mikhail, that it's very, we're looking at the physical locations, the individual areas that the business is based. So different cities will typically have a different profile, potentially depending on the strategy. This is what Zeno's done. It's pretty smart, but then you've got multiple dashboards, multiple profiles to continue with the upload and worry about. You've got multiple reviews coming in for different profiles that you have to maintain. This one's got 19 Google reviews at a 4.5, whereas Zeno, I don't have Zeno up there, but they've got much more reviews for Edmonton and a much higher star rating as well. So that's what I would suggest. If you've got two individual physical locations in different cities, you can employ this strategy. And that's going to help you rank in search better for solar company Edmonton and solar company Lethbridge, because Google has that information that there's multiple physical locations. Does that all make sense? Because that's getting a little bit more advanced. Yeah, does that make sense?
So they're basically setting up like PO boxes. It looks like they have different address locations. They're just different PO boxes in those locations to have the addresses be different. Is that?
No, so they can't be PO boxes. Google Business Profile won't allow PO boxes to be a physical location. It actually has to be somewhere that the company exists and works out from, or a customer can visit directly that shop, or the show house or something like that. So yeah, it can't be a PO box, and you have to be able to prove the business operates from there in some capacity.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and then once again, you're going to have two profiles then to manage, and you can kind of see that the 4.5 is slipping because they're probably not maintaining it as much as the Edmonton one, just based on what I know about the company. But they've got all the information filled out. They've got the information filled out, which is great, but it's just kind of sitting there. So there's a lot of kind of wasted potential for that Lethbridge account. Any questions at all?
So we're kind of a smaller town kind of city, like multiple ones next to each other, but we're pretty small but growing. Starting out as we are, we don't even have any reviews yet. Is it wise to start out with different business profiles at the level we're at right now, or to have the different regions, like they're all within like a 6-mile proximity from one another? But as I said, like pretty smaller type towns. What would you recommend there?
Just start with the one.
Okay.
Yeah, like the difference between Edmonton and Lethbridge is multiple hours. So that's the scale that we're looking at with these two profiles. If you're within, probably 50 to 100 kilometers, somewhere around there, like it should be fine. Like the distance from your physical location will typically become less effective the further away from that location that the search is being performed in. But if you're under like 10 miles, it should be fine. Like I wouldn't start two profiles at all. Just keep it with the one. And then you can kind of get that process down, right? You can see how everything works and manage it much, much easier than having two places to jump back and forth from.
Okay, great.
Cool. Any questions, Mikkel?
No, I don't think so. I know
Okay.
we only have the one. Well, we have 3 buildings in Calgary, but each one does something different. So I've seen reviews kind of go across all 3 websites, but
Yeah, fair enough. What I'd definitely probably just say once again to start with one. With 3, then you have to put specific addresses in or specific neighborhoods, suburbs. It can get messy pretty quick. So it's probably just easier picking your headquarters and using that, optimizing that well. And then in the future, you can start to look for, expanding. But one should be more than enough.
yeah, like do have like a email I send clients afterwards, and that kind of gives them like the warranty, all the warranty stuff information, and then at the bottom it says, if you could review us type of deal, okay, and a link.
Yeah.
Might be helpful to find out a better approach to that, because it's like 1 out of 10 maybe or less actually leave a review.
Yeah. So one of the thing that I find to be the most effective is you don't want to ask for a 5-star Google review that goes against Google terms of service. Actually saying, can you leave us a 5-star review isn't seen as an honest review. So Google has issue with that. It's kind of hard to be caught out, but it
I mean,
has happened.
I leave the 5-star out. I
Yeah.
just ask for
Cool.
the review. But,
Okay.
yeah.
So what I typically do, just to give you an overview, is I definitely send all that warranty information, that kind of stuff. And then I like to check back in with the customer, a week, a month later, doesn't really matter, but more sooner rather than later. Don't leave it for like 12 months. To just say like, hey, how was our service? Is there any other questions? How did we perform basically? Then you'll either get a fantastic, great. And then you'll be like, hey, would you mind leaving a review? It really helps us out. And actually ask that specifically in an email or by itself. So they're not, reading a full email, then right at the bottom, when they're kind of tuned out of the email, that's when you ask for the review. It'll be much more effective if it's just that email. And that's the one kind of call to action in that email. Then if they say they're not happy for some reason, then you've got a chance to improve that experience as well. Whereas if you just ask for a review and they're not happy and they're kind of not happy with the service, they might be a bit bitter. They might potentially leave a negative review. So you're kind of vetting that, you're improving your customer experience, and then you're sending that individual email with just, hey, leave a review. It really helps us. It's much more kind of effective at that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Awesome. So there's a few things here I want to touch on with Xeno Renewables Edmonton. A few things that they're not utilizing. So questions and answers, be the first to ask a question. This is people that want to ask a question publicly. There's a couple of ways you can optimize this. I rarely see it get used, but sometimes I like to jump in there and ask a question from a different profile and then give like a answer on that review. I like to do that sparingly. I don't want to spam that with kind of FAQs, but it just helps to really get those FAQs across. Like the most important questions, like how much is the solar system, which is kind of up in the air. It depends on so many factors. But that's what people are really looking for. I have seen it optimized very well and very spammy. So just best. It's a bit of a slippery slope with that one, but I do think that that's an underutilized option if your profile is looking for that extra kick. these guys do have a 1-star review in their last 3 reviews. What I would be suggesting doing is making sure you reply to all the negative reviews. Even if it's like, if it's a review that's completely fake and you don't know the customer, you've never spoke with the customer, don't reply to it. Reach out to Google support, be like, hey, this is fake. I've never heard of this customer. We've got no record of them. And hopefully that review will be removed, because usually you can tell the review is very vague. It doesn't give you any credible information at all. It's just like, oh, they performed a bad service, 1-star review. Well, it's probably going to be fake, right? So don't reply to those ones. Reach out to Google first. If it is a negative review, I like to reach out to the customer directly and be like, hey, we'd like to make this right. Like, what can we do? Sometimes it's quite obvious what you should be doing to improve that experience, but reply to the review as well, because people can see this 1-star review. If there's no reply to it, it's just that 1-star review. I'd always reply very professionally. I'd always offer, I'm like, hey, like, we're here to help. Please reach out to us. And yeah, just try and be helpful. Try and show that you care, because the 1-star reviews are going to happen, but I wouldn't just leave them ignored, because then that's the end of the conversation. And people will read those. If there's plenty of 1-star reviews, it's going to hurt your brand reputation quite quickly. Does that make sense with the replying to the reviews?
Yes, that does make sense. I do have a quick question on the questions and answers again. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, go for it.
did you say that with the questions and answers, that, like, where would the questions come from? Is that something that that we would ask ourselves to, like, to show other people what what frequent questions are, or is that coming directly from the potential customers?
If it comes from the customers, that's great. It's very rarely someone will click this ask a question button, actually ask a question. They'll reach out to you directly. So I like to use that as an FAQ kind of section, where the most important kind of questions, you don't want, 1,000 questions in there, like 3, maybe 5. But I would upload them myself from a profile, leave it 12 hours or something, and then reply with the common FAQ. I find that just helps to get people's like frequently asked questions, the most important questions, kind of answered when they're on this page, right? So they're like looking at this and they see a question here. There's one question here, right? I'm not too sure. That's not really a question, but people can kind of scroll down and be like, oh, I'd like to know, like, how much is it? Like, what are the common questions you'd get? And then you can kind of put it in there. It is a strategy I do employ, but only if the Google My Business profile is kind of 100%. It's really well optimized, it's performing well, and I'm looking for that extra little boost. I think it all comes down to trying to be helpful. I know it's not technically the correct way of using the feature, but there's a way here where I can provide more information to the user, and I think that's a positive thing. Rather than going to the site, going to the FAQ section, or contacting you, they can actually see that most important information. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. So the other thing here is in the Edmonton page, these guys are really good at putting posts on. So these are posts from the company inside the Google Business profile, and it's just showing that the profile is active. It's a quite a good branding thing, but once again, it requires that the rest of the profile is 100% and good to go. It just helps get a little bit more traction. If you're posting, I typically post 2 times a week, probably Tuesday and Thursday is what I find works the best. Just consistency, you'll start noticing the kind of traction behind the Google business profile kind of pick up. And Google likes to promote Google themselves, right? If they're able to promote you posting on their platform, they're going to love that rather than, just not having anything there, right? Does that make sense with all that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so what we're going to, I've done a Lethbridge, we'll skip past that. So NAP information is kind of like, it's the basic foundational information that Google is looking for, so it knows where you operate, where you serve, and where they should show your website in results. Xeno, once again, we're picking on Xeno here. They do this quite well. So we're really looking for name, address, and phone number. And whenever you change one of these 3 points of information, everywhere that mentions your website online should be changed. So Facebook profile, Twitter, YouTube, your website, obviously. And then any what's called local citations, that any backlinks pointing to your website will need to be changed with this updated information. So we've got a phone number here. It's 1-800-612-1714. That is going to be the same phone number for all these kind of areas, these offices. So that's fine. It's not the best in my opinion, but I think it's fine. They've got one centralized number. I think Google understands that quite well. But then we've also got the location of each office, right? So Calgary, Mississauga, Edmonton, and Lethbridge. They've got their 4, and they've got their contact information, like where they're physically located. So Google will read this and understand that they've got 4 offices, and that will help Google start to process that information and rank them as they see fit. It's not guaranteed by any means that you put your offices in the footer of a page and then you shoot to the top of results. There's a lot more to it, but this is kind of the first step, just making sure Google is aware. This is the footer of their website, so right down the bottom as well. Any questions about what NAP information is, what Google wants to see, anything like that?
No questions for me.
Okay. Yeah, so the other point that I made is local citations. So local backlinks from like website directories, so like Yellow Pages, Yelp, those kind of things. They're typically local citations or a form of local citations. If you do change your address, your name, your phone number, all mentions of your website that you can control need to be changed if possible. So just to give a bit more information on that, you don't want the phone numbers to be different. You don't want the addresses or the business name to be different, because Google will get confused about what's current. It has the potential to show wrong information. It's pretty good with it, but it just makes Google's job easier. Okay. So localized information and keyword targeting. I'm going to pick on Terawatt Solar again here. And this is so basically what they're trying to do is rank for the keyword solar panels in Toronto. This is content. This is a landing page on their website, but it is focused with a local SEO perspective and strategy. They're looking to target Toronto, Ontario, as a landing page in search. This does give Google more local SEO information of where a company serves and where they're trying to target, where they're trying to draw more leads in from. The good thing about these type of pages is solar panels in Toronto is going to be much easier to rank for than solar panels in Canada, for example. Like solar panels in Canada, if you're a newer business or you're just starting out within the last 12 months, don't bother. You're not going to rank for that. Solar panels in Toronto, it's still going to be very difficult. What I would suggest doing is break that down even further into, say, for example, solar panels in Brampton. It's going to be much easier. Brampton is a kind of a city, a sub-city in the Toronto area, the Greater Toronto area. Brampton, so solar panels in Brampton, once again, going to be much easier to rank for than solar panels in Toronto. So really try and filter it down to the smallest locations, and you're going to be able to rank for those in a local search much faster than these bigger areas. Don't know exactly how this page does. I don't think it'll do fantastic, just looking at it, but the concept, the strategy there behind it is solid. It's just not that well executed, in my opinion. Okay, so we've got local content that's targeting local keywords with local information. So you'd really want to talk about the different solar rebates and incentives in Toronto as a whole. And then Ontario as a whole, potentially, but you really want localized information. You don't want to be talking about the solar rebates in British Columbia on the other side of the country if your page is about Toronto. So it's localized for that area you're speaking about. Just a bit of a caveat. This content, these pages need to be unique content. Don't make a Toronto page, a Alberta page, just like different provinces in Canada is what I'm naming there, and copy and paste that information. It won't work. It needs to be uniquely written content and helpful content. That's really going to drive people's want to get solar. So yeah, no copy and pasting. It's still done. It's outdated. It doesn't work. Don't waste your time and energy copy and pasting content from one page to another on a website in general. It's outdated. Okay, localized information and specific local keyword targeting from a local SEO perspective. That's kind of what we're talking about here. Does that all make sense? There's quite a lot to unpack there potentially, depending if you've got questions around that.
That all makes sense to me.
Okay. Any questions there, Mikkel?
No questions.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. So that is the last slide, the last screenshot of the presentation. It was pretty basic. I decided to just take screenshots and pick on companies rather than a wall of text. But yeah, any other questions about, like, we can open the floor now to just general marketing questions. Is there anything from last week that, kind of as you jumped off the call, you thought of a good question? Anything at all?
I have a couple.
Yeah.
So, how often, as you know, as I've mentioned, this is a new business here in North Idaho. How often would you post to your Facebook page with just organic posts?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would suggest doing slower to start and being consistent. I'd much rather see one post a week for 10 years than 5 posts a week and then 1 post next week and then no post the next week and then 2 posts. You're looking to tell people that you're consistent and that you show up. In my mind, probably once to twice a week would be great to start, but just make sure you've got that capacity to be consistent. I think is the primary thing. A lot of marketing agencies and companies will start off real strong and then they'll kind of peter off, and that consistency, the lack of consistency, really hurts the integrity and the authority, I find, for a customer looking for solar.
Okay. And how about, does Facebook, with the consistency, does it bring you more, like, does it expand your reach the more consistent that you are?
The Facebook algorithm will see that you're consistent and start promoting you as long as the posts get engagement. So if the posts aren't getting engagement, if no one's reading them, clicking on them, that's a pretty good indication to Facebook's algorithm that no one, like, people aren't interested for some reason. So that will hurt your reach for sure. But the consistency just continually showing up is, I think, how you get the ball rolling and show Facebook you can be trusted and you can rely on, especially if you're posting at 10 a.m. Tuesday and 10 a.m. Thursday. These are the post times. Over time, that becomes more and more powerful for sure, just due to the algorithm. But there needs to be that engagement as well.
Okay, great. And then, so we're actually starting today. I have two things going with my partner in Oregon. He has an established company. He's been running for 5 years in Oregon. And then we have ours together in Idaho. But I'm also helping him with his Google Ads and Facebook as well in Oregon. So today we're going to be launching a Google ad campaign for his Oregon one. We're kind of wondering, we have a budget set for the summer and kind of testing the waters first. What is a good, like, is it good to try to test the waters a little bit and use a smaller amount to get started? Or do you kind of just break up a couple months worth and go with, kind of spread that out? Or is it better to kind of shoot it all at once, if that makes sense?
I wouldn't shoot it all at once. I have seen campaigns. I think this happened to me back quite a while ago as well, that I decided to be like, I want to like double down on the first month and just get all this data and then, start to really speed up the process. But my targeting was wrong. I clicked one or two different settings and they were wrong. And the campaign just flatlined. So I think just having a monthly budget, break that down into daily spend. Google Ads will potentially go higher than your daily spend, but it won't go over your monthly spend. I think a friend told me that the daily spend, Google can double that for a day, and then other days just wouldn't have as much budget, if that makes sense. So if you had a $50 budget, $50 daily budget, Google will go up above that if they think the conversion is if it's a potential solid conversion. So don't be afraid of that. Go broad though, like broad keywords. Don't narrow the keyword focus with your keyword match types too much. You want to see what people are searching for and see what resonates with people. You want to make decisions based on data, not what you kind of think people are searching for, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that was actually my next question, because he had been running Google Ads for a while, or for a couple of months. And then when I went into the dashboard yesterday, it was, all the recommendations. And the one was to make it those broader keywords. That was one recommendation. So then I was kind of diving into whether or not those recommendations are ones you should follow. But I did go ahead and change that to the broader keywords. So yeah, I didn't know, as far as those recommendations, which ones to kind of go with Google. But
yeah, Google's recommendations are, be very careful with their recommendations. They want you to spend more money, and it's not necessarily going to lead to a more optimized and profitable campaign. They want your budget. They want your ad spend. And the faster they can kind of get that, it's typically a better return on investment for them. So just be careful with the keywords, with the broad keyword suggestions. Go through them individually. Don't just blanket turn them on. Some broad keywords are just ridiculous. It's like there's no chance anyone's going to convert from some broad keywords that Google are recommending.
Mm-hmm.
And they use AI and everything for it now as well. So to Facebook. So just be careful. Just like always, just go through like that keyword, a specific keyword. Do I think someone's actually searching that with the intent of finding a solar company and buying a solar system? Yes
Mm-hmm.
or no? If yes, you can put it in as a broad keyword and then just monitor the performance of that individual keyword as well, just to have that information. If if it's not performing, you can always remove it or adjust different strategies for if a keyword is or isn't performing there for sure. But make your decisions based on data rather than just guesswork for sure.
Okay. So yeah, if there's like a number of keywords that are not working, that have not, like, even in the past haven't worked at all, like there's a 0% next to it, is that something that you would recommend removing, or just kind of feel it out, kind of go keyword by keyword and see what seems like it should stay?
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely do it keyword by keyword. I'd be looking at how, because you can see in the back end of Google dashboards of how much budget was spent by people clicking on the keyword, and then make sure you've got conversion tracking set up as well. So how many conversions did that ad spend, that ad budget produce? And then you can kind of get a cost per lead through that. And then down the line, a cost per acquisition and all that kind of stuff. So definitely be looking at, because I see a lot of keywords get a lot of cheap clicks, but they don't convert. So it's like, unless your strategy is brand awareness, which sometimes it works quite well. Some companies have the budget for that. But if you're looking for sales, which I'd assume you would be kind of starting out, you really want clicks that turn into conversions, right? You want solid qualified leads that, really invested and eager to kind of get started with solar. So definitely tracking that cost per acquisition, and then you can tie that back to keywords as well
Okay.
in different ways. Yeah.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No worries at all. Hopefully that helped. Yeah, if you've got questions with the data next week, bring that along, and we can dive into Google Ads, because it's Google makes it a little bit difficult sometimes when it should be simple. So yeah, happy to kind of dive into the data that you're seeing on your end.
Awesome. Greatly appreciate that.
No worries at all. Is there any other questions at all about any of this, or marketing in general?
Ben,
Hmm?
I guess for myself, I don't really have much of a say for the marketing at my company. Is there a way I could go about it, I guess, on my own, other than spending my own money on Google?
Yeah, so I guess from a marketing perspective, it's either going to be time or money that you're going to be investing. If there's no budget, then you've got to put the work into organic methods. So that's creating content, whether that's on your website, social content, video. There's going to be some type of investment. If there's no budget, then it'll be time. AI makes it easier, a little bit less time involved, but you kind of need to just make sure that the content that you're producing is resonating, and once again bringing those conversions in. Organic's definitely longer term, definitely than ads, but if there's no spend, if there's no budget allocated to ads, then it is very difficult to kind of get the ball rolling at times, for sure.
Okay. All right, thanks.
No worries, all good. If I think starting out, if just to jump on that, the paid versus organic, you can always reach out to people through like partnerships, and try and get leads that way. There's other professions that have typical like solar leads coming in. Has to be a mutual beneficial relationship. So like, what are you offering people? to become a partner. That kind of stuff can work. It just needs to be, once again, beneficial for both ways. If you were starting out on page traffic, page conversions, I do find Facebook is a bit easier to kind of get started. And there's different ways you can pre-qualify leads on Facebook as well. It's typically a bit cheaper cost per lead. The leads just need a little bit more work because there's less search intent. People aren't actively searching for solar. They're interested in solar for some reason on Facebook, but they might be looking for solar panels for their RV or your solar panel little generator, the thing that they take camping. Facebook will kind of be aware that they're searching for solar in different ways. But Facebook is typically where I would start for a newer company. Google Ads, better quality leads, but that you will pay a little bit more, a higher cost per click, a higher cost per lead for those leads because they are searching for solar. For you, Brianna, there's probably not that much competition in your local area, so Google Ads might work fantastic. Yeah, it just depends. Google Ads can be a bit of a headache to kind of get working at times, just because the higher cost per click means you get less data in the back end over time. So yeah, kind of feel it out. They both work, both different strategies, definitely. But yeah, that's my kind of ramble about organic versus paid.
That answered my next question, because I was going to say, if you were starting out, would you start with Facebook or Google? And what about if you have a budget set for running these campaigns, would you recommend starting solely in one place? I think you may have touched on this before, but solely on either Facebook or Google, or kind of splitting that budget and doing both, or what would you recommend?
I think if you had less than, say, like probably 1,000, I'd just stick with the one, like 1,000 ad spend per month. Just stick with the one platform. I wouldn't separate it, because the more data you've got pumping into one area, one funnel, you're going to be able to get to what works and what resonates a bit quicker. And then you can replicate that from Facebook to Google or vice versa. I always kind of recommend starting in the one area, getting that working, because I guarantee Facebook ads and Google ads will work for solar. But what makes people click, what makes people convert, does vary slightly over states, provinces, countries, definitely. So start in the one, get that working, and then duplicate it out.
Okay, great.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions? Otherwise, we could probably wrap this up.
No, I think I'm good. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Is there any topics? I know I ask this every time. I am working on a couple in the back end that are a little bit more complex. Is there any topics you'd like to see me cover for next week, or just in general, that I could start kind of having to think about and working on?
One that comes to mind for me, as I'm kind of thinking that with the North Idaho company, I think that we should start with Facebook, where the Oregon one is more on Google. But as far as like targeting your audience, like your market audience for Facebook and the demographics, where to start with that, and like that would be really beneficial for me. Just the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay. Yeah, that is a bit of can be a difficult one, because I see a lot of campaigns trying to narrow the audience too much, and the campaign just does nothing. But I mean, Facebook's going to take your money, but they're not going to show you to the right people. So yeah, that is a very interesting one. I can kind of run through a basic Facebook ads kind of campaign setup of how I do things. But yeah, there's a few moving parts. Facebook ads are always changing, which is really annoying. But yeah, I can definitely set up something like that as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, if there's anything that kind of comes to mind too, I can always message you if that works, like over these, if there's anything that comes to mind throughout this week. And
yeah, perfect. Sounds good.
Thank you so much. This is so valuable for me. I really, really appreciate it. I'm so glad that I caught the wind that this was all happening. I know I've mentioned that before, but really appreciate this, Ben. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries at all. If there's any ways that you think we can, like how I can promote this, to get new people on, it is something I'm trying to actively do. The more people we get, more insights, more questions. It's just going to be more helpful for everyone involved. So yeah, if there's anyone that you kind of meet or any other solar companies, yeah, kind of push them this way, and yeah, hopefully they jump on and they can start asking some questions as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been talking about it and sharing it for sure. It seems like
Awesome.
everybody's in the thick of the busyness right now because
Yeah.
it's over where we are. It's like these are the prime months. We have three prime months. It seems like where everybody's really busy right now. So that's what I think is happening. But I will continue to share. And I don't know if you're sharing on LinkedIn or anything too, but that might be a good avenue. And I can share on mine as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. I'm sharing, kind of just blasting it everywhere, just to kind of get started. But yeah, I think you are right. In Canada, it's the same. You probably know, Miko. It's very short window.
Yeah, they say 6 months, but it's like 3.
Yeah, it's 6 months is kind of the lead up and the lead down, but the 3 months in the middle is kind of where it's at for sure.
Yeah, the weather in Calgary right now hasn't been very nice. So
Fair enough. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good outside right now. I'm in Edmonton, 3 hours north. So just to kind of give some context, yeah, so it's probably coming up to us.
Maybe one topic we can cover is how to market solar in winter, because that is one thing that it seems like if you get that down, I've talked to people who say that's what they do is get it all set up for the summer in the winter, but it's really difficult to look outside when you have no sunlight or even light and even fathom how you're going to sell solar. But
yeah, there's one client that I do have that's when we test things. We just test like, oh, I've thought about this. Let's trial this new CRM or something like that, because things will typically break when you test new stuff. It's kind of part of the process, in a lot of times. So that would be the time to test. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting, like, how to market solar in winter. I'll put that on the notice board for, in the next couple of months, when I think that's going to start being kind of come up in people's minds. How you can kind of market during the kind of the less, like, the away from the peak months.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, let's call it there. And yeah, I will see you guys next week. If there's any questions, if there's something you want me to cover in next week's call, just send me a message. More than happy to.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Have a great day, guys.
yeah, thanks, man.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.